John, welcome to Out of the Hourglass. How you doing this morning?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing great. It is end of March. It's 80 something degrees or about to be 82 degrees here. And you and I are both in Pennsylvania. That feels like magic for the end of March.
It really does. Hopefully it stays around for a little bit.
I know, me too. Me too. Well, I'm on the east coast of the state. You're more on the west coast of the state. And I'm really excited to share kind of your story. I love having clients on to kind of talk about where they were, what they're doing now. Before we jump into all of that, for those that don't have the pleasure of knowing you, can you give us a quick rundown of who you are, what you do, and where you're from?
Yep, absolutely. I'm John Moskola. So we're, as Molly said, from the west side of Pennsylvania, about an hour south of Pittsburgh, in small town of Jefferson, Pennsylvania. So,
Fantastic. And you are a co-founder of Watson and Sons Plumbing.
correct. Yeah. So co-owner. So we purchased the business actually almost 4 years ago off the previous owner. So it's been in
Wow.
existence for 20 years before we purchased it. So we're going on year 24. It
Okay.
started as out of their garage and we purchased it as a five-person company. And now it currently we're up to 14 employees.
Amazing. I can only imagine, what the business owner who or the founder of the business who started it, what they could see you and your brother doing now. I mean, it's probably such a change of kind of how the business was run 24 years ago to how things are operating in the
Oh,
present day.
absolutely. And they still pop in from time to time, so they get to see it.
I love it. Let's talk a little bit about kind of your, the story of Watson Sons, from your perspective and your brothers. You come from a tech and Department of Defense background, not a plumbing and small business background. How does someone with that career in tech and Department of Defense end up in small business?
As crazy it is, there's still a lot of similarities. So we still have to
Interesting.
maintain balance sheets, profit and losses to look at annual IT budgets,
Mm.
similar to a business at the end of the year, end of the fiscal year. You either spend your money or you lose it. Similar for the government, you have to spend
Yeah.
your budget by the end of the year or it gets readjusted the next year. So it's just ironing out the processes, having a plan, knowing a 12-month forecast on what you're going to need and how much things are going to cost.
Interesting. What caused the shift into this new industry for you?
It was a mix of both. So I've always had a need or a want to own a business.
Yeah.
So I went to school for business and IT management, a master's in cybersecurity, but there was always that need for a business. So
That
just
entrepreneurial itch you had to scratch.
absolutely. And just a
Yeah.
need for numbers and, work for the government for so long. I'm such an extrovert. It was just sitting there at a desk and I was like, I just need to get out more and do more. So
Yeah.
this opportunity came about and jumped on it.
Fantastic. And, the picture of Watson and Sons today, obviously you mentioned when you purchased the business, it was, there was five employees. Now you're up to 14. But what does the business look now from like a locations perspective? Have you expanded services? Give us like a high level view of the business.
Yeah, so almost 2 years ago, we purchased a second location. So that was a huge change. So not only that, but we've taken on three new counties compared to the current three we had. So now we're in six counties. We do residential, commercial, and industrial services.
You've taken Watson and Sons to a whole new level than where it
Absolutely.
started.
So
That's
we're excited.
Yeah, and we'll get into a little bit, down further down the conversation, but obviously you've got, hopes and dreams for the future and for more, more things to accomplish. But let's talk about, when you purchased the business and kind of the story of, to where you guys are now. You made a decision to grow from a local operation to a business that is now in multiple territories, multiple counties. You've added services. What drove that desire in you? I mean, obviously having the entrepreneurial itch is one thing, but did you know when you guys purchased the business that you were going to scale this thing?
That was the plan. It was to always to make it grow, but the time was just right. So we had actually outgrown our current shop. So we're like, do we either add on to the current building or we could do nothing, which we didn't want to stay stagnant. So then that began to us to start looking for new properties. So there was actually a couple spots right in a block away that we looked at. It didn't work out like we had
Mhm.
thought. But it ended up being a blessing in disguise. So we got online to start looking for buildings, and this one where we ended up purchasing it popped up. And we're like, this looks too good to be true because it was
Yeah.
right by two major highways, which connects Pennsylvania to West Virginia and Ohio. So it was right on that border, pull talent from those areas, and we can also expand into those areas, but then it also put us 30 minutes from downtown Pittsburgh and those surrounding areas. So it really was a very desirable spot. It was on the market for 270 days that another business had owned. So we thought, okay, they're motivated. So reached
Hmm.
out to some mentors on how to put the offer in. And they said, just give it a little bit less. So we ended up going, I think, 15% less on the building than what they were asking for. And they took the offer because it was a out of town bigger business and they just wanted to get rid of it. So we bought it
That's
and
fantastic.
we put a little TLC into it. Didn't need much, but it's turned out to be a great spot. You're able to see it from the highway. So that's essentially the free billboard. It's
Yeah.
next to four hotels and a casino, so a lot of people get to see it that way. So it really has been a great marketing and location.
That's fantastic. You mentioned, asking kind of mentors about, the offer. How big of a role has mentors, either, personal mentors, professional mentors, kind of played a role in just this whole trajectory for you guys from, I mean, one, learning a new industry, coming into the small business world. Have you leaned on mentors a lot for just some guidance?
Absolutely, because you can do it on your own, but these mentors have been through the ringer themselves. So
Yeah.
relying on them to say, what have you learned? What were some of your mistakes? Has really been key to so prevent you from doing the same thing, and it could be
Yeah.
costly. So
Yeah.
it's really been helpful.
The power of peers and a network is priceless
Yes. Yeah.
oftentimes.
And it
Uh,
offers a different perspective too to think about because you may
yeah.
be thinking one way and they say, well, I did it this way, I had the same thought, and here's a lesson I learned. So then it allows you to pivot or throw an audible.
Yes, I love when people, say, "This is what I learned by doing it. Don't go down the same road. If I can save you tens of thousands of dollars or hours of time." I mean, that is huge when you're trying to kind of figure out what the best route to take is. And, if you can get to places a little bit quicker than you are going to because of the route that you plan to take wasn't going to be the right one. I mean, that you can't put a price on time and kind of all that, just that waste, not wasted, but that energy that was directed in the wrong place in a sense.
Yes, especially when you have someone that's been there and done the same thing and
Yeah.
stopped you ahead of time, saved you a lot
Yeah.
of hours.
What did you guys underestimate, or did you underestimate any of kind of the growth trajectory, the growth plans that you had for this business? Factors that you could control, you couldn't control. What has been kind of learning lessons for you in all of this?
One of the big ones, I think, is just how much cost it was going to be, not
Yeah.
to buy, but it's just for it to catch on and grow. So when
Hmm.
we added this location, it was right around, so we had no marketing budget, so we've never there. So we had to let our marketing grow into this new territory. Last year was an election year.
Hmm.
So a lot of administration changes, these big businesses, the industrial clients that we were targeting, they're tightening their wallet. They're not adding new projects for at least for, till the third quarter, because the first when the administration changes and they want to see what kind of policies, interest rates are
Right.
going to factor in. So they're building that into their budget. So really they're not kicking it until third or fourth quarter, which we saw, as I mentioned, to the marketing. So it's just getting your name out into that whole new territory. We started from scratch with a new web page and actually turning on Google Ads. So that took, 3 to 4 months. So having a staff in place ready to handle the workload and all the upfront costs. So it took a little bit of time for it to work, but it's really
Yeah.
paying off now. So I think that's one of the things that I underestimated was how much upfront it was going to take, but it's paid off.
Yeah, that's the tricky part, when people think about growth, and it's like, what comes first, chicken or the egg, in terms of the money, the revenue, and then the capital for growth. To grow, to scale, in the way that you guys have wanted to do so, requires capital. But where does that come from? And so what avenues did you guys explore? I mean, to grow at the rate that you guys have, to do the marketing activities that you guys have done, you probably had to think really strategically on the financial side. How did you go about that?
It was, so I had one of the main things with drivers was not having just one set plan and say, hey, it's going to work. So it was like having plan A, plan B, plan C, plan
Yep.
D, and then plan E. Plan A was, work's going to maintain consistent, which you knew that wasn't going to happen. So B was, okay, we're going to have some cash reserves, a hefty stash, which we had that. So that was B. Plan C was if we ran out, can we open up another business credit card just for the short term to cover material costs? So we ended up doing
Hmm.
that. And then plan D was that lasted us to 6 months. And by that time, we were planning to refinance our current SBA loan. And with that was going to give us an extended line of credit because for working capital, because whenever we first bought the business, the amount we needed wasn't sufficient enough for where we were. So
Okay.
by that time we hit the working capital and then the new bank said, oh, absolutely. You have the numbers to back that up. So it was there. So it was having all those set plans in place that it wasn't, hey, if plan A failed, we're in trouble. So it was having
Yeah.
a contingency plan to your contingency plan.
The idea for these contingency plans is this something that you just naturally created because of your experience working, another vertical? Did you work with a coach on these plans? Kind of what was your approach to creating these different plans?
It's a little bit of both. So it was having just the natural mindset of, hey, you have to have plan A, B, C, and D for
Yeah.
it to work. And then verifying, am I thinking the right path with a coach? And then going over, say, am I missing something? And then even running it by the bank. So they know too, they love the plans. And then so that
Yeah.
way they are confident with you and your mindset and how you're running things. And it's proved, significant with them also because they know, hey, it's not just a one size fits all.
Yeah, I mean, it makes a lot of sense too. I mean, to kind of get some verification on what you're hoping to do, to get the bank to understand and support you. I mean, ultimately, and I would imagine that you've seen this, you want to make the banker your friend, right? I mean, and so the best way to do that is to be creating an open, transparent relationship with them as to what you're intending to do and your approach to it. Is that kind of the same, like, is that the way you looked at it?
It really has been, and it's been great. Our new, bank we've refinanced with, they're a one branch bank. So they know you by name. So built that reputation and relationship with them versus a bigger bank where you're just a number and they have
Yeah.
no idea who you are in the call center. So that's been really great too. So it's just working through. So when they ask, what do you need? Or I mean, I've had loan payments go through and they're like, we don't recognize this. Just want to make sure this isn't fraud. I'm like, nope, it's good. That's an automatic new withdrawal payment for a piece of equipment. So just having that small bank relationship and then having that relationships has been huge.
Yeah, it makes so much sense. We've been big advocates of kind of the small business or the small banker relationship. We saw it them being honestly so much more helpful during COVID and the need for SBA and PPP loans, just because that relationship did exist versus being one of 100,000 people or per se in a customer from a large banking corporation. It just makes sense to get your banker in your circle.
That's it. Absolutely. And even, we're having a conversation about the working capital, the lines being renewed in a month or in a couple months for the year annual review. But, using the Nolan sheets has been great to show, hey, here's how much working capital we're going to need. So it's going to be big to have our budget for the year outlined so we can go through if it does need to be raised and say, hey, here's our data. Here's where our projects are. Here's why. I'm not just asking for X
Yeah.
amount of raise just to ask for it. Here's the data that backs it up. So it's
Yeah.
making sure you have everything there and having like you said, the banker that trusts you and understands your numbers and that
Yeah,
reputation.
they have to love when a customer comes prepared like that with the correct documentation in an organized manner, and they can show the history and they can show the trajectory. That makes the approval process so much easier on both sides of the table.
Absolutely. And that's I laughed the first meeting I had, or second meeting they went through was an hour long meeting. I talked for 18 minutes and their next minute and a half was we have no questions. So it's like, all
Wow.
right, here we go.
That's awesome. That's the way you want to get started. Were there any decisions or like periods of time where this growth plan, the having to work through the different plan strategies that you created, did it feel risky? Were there parts that just felt stressful to you?
It kept telling yourself to trust the process because there were, when you're looking at your cash flows being depleted, you're like, oh man, am I doing the right thing? But it's having those plans in place and trusting your process. And it's like sports. You got to go through halftime or you got to audible or you change your plan just a little bit. But if you blow your whole plan up, it's all going to go to waste. So it was
Yeah.
just trusting there, making the little tweaks here and there and just going with the gut and saying, hey, look, we put the right plan in place. We can tweak it, but if we completely blow it up, then it's all going to go away.
I mean, you try to control as much as you can, right, in all of this. But no matter what, business is risky. It's a game. It's a game that you're playing, and you're just trying to make the right moves as fast as you can.
Absolutely. And in this kind of society now, you want instant gratification, but you
Yeah.
can't do it in business. So it's taking its time, especially we learned with marketing. They told us, you're just turning your spigot on. It's going going to take 6 months to really start clicking. It took four, but
Yeah.
you're sitting there watching, you're like, oh no, when's it coming? When's it coming? Is it going to work? And then it
Yeah,
just
and
took time.
you're spending all this money, you're seeing it go out the door, and you're like, when is it gonna hit? I want to jump into that because I know that that has been kind of a big way that you have activated your growth. But before so, talk to me a little bit about so you currently work with Steve Lawton, one of our coaches, and you've been working with Nolan Consulting Group for a couple years now with a couple different coaches, Steve being the most recent one. He comes from a background of, I mean, he lives and breathes building businesses and he lives and breathes marketing. When you began working with Steve, what were some perspectives that he brought to the table that maybe you guys didn't see on your own?
It was combining a bunch. So Steve's been great. Like you said, just how he's been able to take smaller businesses and just blow them up. And,
That's what he does.
three to four exits. So just his
Yeah.
mindset and the way me and him can talk is just like we both think the numbers and can go through the data.
Yeah.
Come into a meeting and it's not what do you want to talk about? It's here we hit 5 or 6 key points and roll, and then that's it. And then here's our plan, implement it, and then by the next month, how to work. So he's taught, different marketing avenues, not just, take the traditional. So we have proactive, reactive. So proactive is, we're sending out mailers to customers and anyone in the surrounding area. We're doing that. We're doing, buying lists and, calling decision makers in our industry. So those are some very key, insightful things he's offered that we've taken rather than just be the reactive of somebody typing your name into Google.
Yeah, he has a great way of I guess it's an aggressive marketing approach, but he's utilizing a bunch of different avenues and a bunch of different kind of partners and to do so. Obviously, this was an important thing for you guys to kind of really focus on, especially when you moved into so you moved into a new territory. When did you do that? You recently, you said, right?
Yep. So we bought the building in October of 24.
Okay,
But
just
then
over a year.
really January of last year is really when we started hitting the ground running because with the marketing, we had the staff in place. We got the vehicles purchased. So it's really the building was October, vehicles were in December. And then we could kind of how you've mentioned, you're either going to have too much work and not enough employees, or you're not going to have the. So we were like, you know what? We don't want to start this new territory and not have the right staff in place. And then we're already going to have the bad reputation. So we had the
Right.
staff, the vehicles, the equipment in place, and then we had to wait for the leads. So right now, here we are a year later. We talk about the change. We're, 2.5 week wait list for
Fantastic.
calls. So, if there are emergencies, we try and put them in. But last year it was like, oh, come on, where's our calls? Where's our calls? Now, we trusted the process. We waited. Now it's a 2.5 week wait list.
Yeah, I mean that's a risk all on its own, and obviously it's worked out in your favor to really like you got this new office territory or this new area kind of staffed up and ready to go before the work was really there versus kind of waiting to see what you might need. Who told you that the marketing was going to take like 6 months to really hit?
It was both. So our marketing company, but also the peer group, one of the mastermind groups. A lot
Okay.
of people have done the marketing for their companies, and that's where their market. And then they said, "Hey, you're not going to see instant results. 6 months, 8 months." But what we really did is in that time frame, we had weekly meetings where we sat there and honed in on keywords, territories, exactly what we wanted. That it wasn't just a general marketing blitz. We said, "Here's the counties we want. Here's the areas. Here's what we want to advertise." So it's really a hand-in-hand partnership of not worrying, telling the marketing company, "Hey, go do what you want." It's building that relationship with them too. And I mean, the company we're with now, they're a smaller company, so we have that good relationship with them. Where before them, we had a company and they just have fun. It's pretty much it. And then when you called them out on the mistakes,
Yeah.
they were, oh, well, we don't guarantee this. We don't guarantee that. So they were bigger. So I think that for marketing, for those looking, go with a smaller one. Again, where you're not just a number or someone calling in a call center. You are somebody. You're a face.
It's such an important thing to call out, and I'm glad you said that. And I think it's part of it too is finding the right marketing company that you fit with. Obviously, if you're having those weekly conversations with them, you want to make sure that you're getting along and there's good personality and good relationship that's able to build. And that might take sometimes a couple different agencies before you find the right fit. You guys didn't obviously take trying on that many to do so, but it shows the importance of it because now you're able to have those direct conversations. Did you go into this space knowing a lot about marketing, or have you learned a lot just through these conversations yourself?
I've learned a lot. So it's just a matter of it's more than just, hey, you're putting out like with Google, the ads. It's, you're actively bidding. So your budget's
Mhm.
going towards, you're bidding on the eyes, which I knew from the tech side, you are the client is, or when you use Google, it's not free.
Yeah.
You are the product. That's what it's for. So you
Yeah.
product for that. So,
Yeah.
but how on the back end, how much went into, okay, here's how you bid to get on those eyes and the different keys for it. Like, if I'd seen that on Google, I'm like, oh, they're just putting it up there. But now I learned more like, oh, well, they're paying for it because they could potentially be good or they are reputable versus someone further down.
You mentioned when we had a conversation, kind of pre-conversation here about a keyword trick that something that you guys discovered, that you changed a keyword and how it dramatically increased your search results. And it shows it's just a good example of like how one tweak can change everything. What can you tell us that story again?
Yeah, so we were working with a marketing company for gas line repairs. So we do, all of our guys are certified for gas line repairs. So that's going through. So that puts you on a list. So when individuals were Googling, we were working with a marketing company like gas line repair, and the results weren't that many. I mean, there were maybe in the low thousands. But
Okay.
then we changed gas line repair to gas leak repair, and that put us at, tens of thousands. And that put us into the mind of the customer of what, because when a gas company comes and, hey, you have a leak in your gas line. So they're looking up gas leak repair, not gas line repair. So it's just that simple tweak of a search engine has been crazy to see just
Yeah.
with that because that factored into the SEOs on what they're looking, which put us up higher on the pages and we're coming in, our ratings are higher. So it's just learning those keywords and well, it's tough whenever you're in the day to day or you're part
Hmm.
of it. You know the right terminology. So it's taking your hat off and thinking like a customer of
Yeah.
what are they typing in?
Yeah. The gas line repair is the service that you provide, but they're reaching out because they see a problem, and that problem in their mind is a leak.
So the gas line technician said, "Hey, you have a leak in your gas line." So they're like, "How do
Yeah.
I fix my leak?" So gas leak repair near me or something along those lines. They're not looking up gas line repair. They're looking up their
Yeah, those little tweaks. What are some other kind of cool marketing things you're doing right now? Whether, things that trigger automatically, automations. What are some things that you're kind of proud of that the team is doing?
So for the marketing side, it's using different tools and have them connect in together to be more
Hmm.
automated. So we've had one of the different marketing company come through. They're tapped into our CRM. So anytime we have different trigger keywords factor in the jobs closed, they're getting mailers. So
And
it's
then are you kind of targeting the people around those areas as well?
correct. Yeah. So the targeted areas where customers that we were just at. So
Okay.
they were, especially with plumbing, they may need, if it's in a certain area for, tree roots, breaking a pipe, more than likely these are older homes that in a nice tree lined neighborhood, and there's going to be more than one neighbor that's going to have that issue. So they've seen our truck, they've seen the mailers, and I mean, had people call in and say, hey, we saw your truck sitting in traffic. So traffic can be a good thing sometimes too for free.
Yeah, it's true. It also it again reiterates the point. All of our listeners know this, but like the branding and the wrapping on your trucks being presentable and looking clean, and drivers driving professionally. That like it is a moving billboard for
Exactly.
your business.
And a couple of our guys too, we now allow them to take their trucks home. So their trucks are sitting in their driveway. Somebody drives
Smart.
the house like, oh, we saw your truck in this neighborhood. So now it's, the free billboard sitting in his driveway for all the neighborhoods.
It's clever. Yeah, again, there are pros and cons to all of that, but you have to kind of really outweigh what makes the most sense for what we're looking to achieve here. You hit on this just briefly a few seconds ago about the tree lines and the pipes, especially in homes that have or neighborhoods that have older homes. This trenchless lining service that you're now offering, this has kind of been it's a new service that is offering kind of new growth opportunity, new marketing components. Anybody who lives in an older home, I do myself, knows, and Colin here, one of our coaches, I think I was telling you this. He bought a home 4 or 5 years ago. Within 6 months, they were having their front yard dug up because there was a leak or their tree lines wrapped around. They just, And that is thousands and thousands of dollars. And it's a headache. Nobody wants their front yard ripped up. What have you guys been working on? And how has this been a kind of a new kind of growth outlet for you?
It's called a trenchless sewage repair. So it's rather than, as you mentioned, Molly, digging up your entire yard, we dig a small access hole and it injects like a sock bladder into the existing infrastructure. And then we use the latest technology and it hardens the pipe. So you're getting a brand new pipe. You're not digging up your yard. You're not taking days at a time for the excavation to come up. It's just a small hole and it's as good as new. So one of the worries is, well, is this a temporary fix? No, it's lining itself website. I believe they say they guaranteed for almost 40 years. So it's almost like
Wow.
you're going through, it's just using new technology to go through. So it's a UV light that hardens it and then it goes through that way. So it's
Wow.
great for homeowners. It's great for cities that don't want to tear up the road. You just dig the
Yeah.
small side hole and then put this bladder in. So that's been very big. Especially there's one in the surrounding counties. They now have to have a plumbing inspection done before you sell a house. So we're going through a lot of these neighborhoods rather than dig up, you're trying to sell your home rather than dig up the front lawn and then you're trying to sell your house to the new homeowner with a dug up yard. Now it's just a small, and then they know, hey, their plumbing's good for X amount of years.
Yeah, that's big. Adding that to kind of the inspection list before selling. When we sold our home, the inspection was just, the township. It was required by the township, and it was just for internal kind of operations of the home, not necessarily anything external. Who knows what that would have dug up in terms of kind of finding a problem there. But I could see it. I could see it. I don't know how it's been received, that new inspection policy, but I could see new homeowners being very grateful of knowing kind of what they're purchasing or going in with a fixed sewage line prior to, the sale of the property.
It is, and it's worked out too, I think, because, in negotiation side too. So
Yeah.
some of them, they're saying, you know what, you may not have that cash, 10, 15,000 up front, but you're selling your house, or hey, can we just give you the check at closing? So that money's coming. It just may
Yep.
be a week or two or whenever the closing is, or maybe the seller somehow works that into the price. So it works on both ends.
Yeah. Has this allowed you guys to tap into kind of a new relationship with real estate agents, or how are you approaching this, especially in that area where it's a part of the inspection?
We're trying to build relationships with the realtors, to get onto their recommendation list, targeting, homeowners that we see that have for sale signs up. So they know it's there. So working with them and hopefully the mailers start coming out that way too. So if someone in that neighborhood is selling their house, you're going 10, 15, where chances are someone around there may be selling too. So they're going to
Yeah.
see our mailers.
So you're right now, you're kind of in that, like you were with the digital marketing side, you're now kind of in that bated breath of, are the mailers going to work? And you're hoping they're going to hit.
Yes, absolutely. And some
Yeah.
people that I've talked to, that realtors in the Northern Virginia area that use this, they said it takes, quite a few thousand for those to come through, but they're eventually going to recognize your name. It's just getting in front. So if they see our truck, they see the mailers and they
Mhm.
see, the reputable Google reviews, it's just how many times are those eyes going to be in front?
You're just kind of seeing how all of the different activities you're doing is really kind of all a puzzle piece coming together. And it requires obviously capital to do so. It requires patience. It requires some strategy. It requires the ability to pivot when you're not seeing things work the way that they should after giving it the appropriate amount of time to flush out.
Yes. So that's the key word is time. Just be
Time.
patient, time, and getting in front.
All these things are happening. The business is growing. Obviously challenges still remain, but when did it hit for you guys at any point, like this is working, like what we're doing, the growth of all of this, like we're on the right track here?
Yes, I think that's what's there. So back to the marketing is, we decreased our budget by 50% probably about 3 weeks ago, just
Okay.
because our call volume has been significant. So it's kind of like the barometer. So you don't want to shut it off completely, but let's
Hmm.
see where this goes. So far our call volume still is coming up. So we're saying, you know what, if we notice it's not, it's slowing down, then we'll ramp it back up. But we know this is kind of the busy season, so calls are still coming in. It's
Yeah.
realtors. We have some other big projects coming up, so we don't want to waste ad dollars either, because if
Hmm.
you're putting it out there, that's 5% of your profit you're wasting. So let's see where this goes. So this is new for us too, to be like, hey, it's still working. We're still
Yeah.
2.5 weeks out of calls, but is this the trickle effect from before, or is this it's still working.
What is the average, if you were to look back at your 2025 numbers, what is the average percentage on marketing that you spent, throughout the entire year?
Last year was, though, if you factor in the web page too, it was
Hmm.
higher, but
Okay.
it was, I think we were at 8% last year, but
Okay.
we were told, through Steve, and you have to ramp it up just because you're coming in cold.
Yeah.
So you're turning the spigot on for the first time ever. So it's an algorithm game too. So you have
Yeah.
to let the Google algorithms know, hey, you're serious. So you have to keep flooding that money in. And that's what we saw. And now it's turning back.
So there were months where it was higher and then you've turned it back down. Do you expect 2026 to come in average a little bit lower now that the web page project has been done and you have activated yourself in this new territory, or do you think you'll still remain in that 8%?
It's going to go down, but in the same sense too, is we're reallocating those dollars. So like
Okay.
in the marketing budget, we had that planned, but it's also now going towards the other marketing. So it's putting in, so we're still ramping it down.
Yep.
But so maybe we'll come in at 6%. So we just changed where those dollars are. So we
Yeah.
kind of knew through the budget on the plan for the year how much we were going. Like I'm very conservative when I do my budgeting. So I knew
Hmm.
this was coming out, a high amount. So it's like, hey, here's our worst case if we needed. So seeing that is actually coming towards the bottom line.
Which, yeah. And so it's great to be aware and then to be able to kind of pivot those where it makes the most sense. When you think about kind of that spend now compared to like what when you first acquired the business, it was all word of mouth before, right? I mean, this is like a total change of behavior.
It really has been. And that was part of understanding too through the old marketing versus the new one. The old one was like, look at all these calls you're receiving. Look at all these calls you're receiving. But here it was all because someone was just typing our name into Google. So it's
Yeah.
understanding those two. And it was all word of mouth. So it was
Yeah.
small town in existence for 20 plus years. It's like, hey, we've used you here, 3 years ago for this. And so used you here. We used you 10 years, but going into that whole new territory. And that was, part of that getting uncomfortable is knowing
Yeah.
I'm spending how much money, but just understanding the metrics of how much you're spending and what are you getting in return. Is it worth it?
Yep.
It absolutely has been.
Great. And you're clearly still keeping a close eye on it because you're as you said, you just kind of turned it down a little bit because the leads are coming in, you're booked out 2.5 weeks. How often are you now either meeting with your marketing company or looking at those metrics? Like how close of attention are you paying on all of this?
So we meet with the marketing now instead of every week, it's bi-weekly. And
Okay.
then at the end of the month, we have a full on report, but every Monday afternoon, we get a automated report from the previous week. So it's like an
Awesome.
8-page report of keywords, how much was spent on that and what was spent, where did that money go, what kind of ads, like how much was the cost per click. So it's still paying attention to those every week.
That's great. You've made the investment in your business and you're watching your investment. You're not just letting it fly,
Exactly.
which is smart.
So it's being hands-on and just paying close attention to those
Yeah.
metrics.
Let's talk about, the future where, obviously so much has happened in these four short, long years. Where do you hope for this business to go? What are your dreams for Watson and Sons?
We would love to acquire a couple more businesses to grow, but it would be making sure it fits our culture
Yeah.
and what we've built and not just buy something to buy something. So that
Yeah.
not only do the numbers have to make sense, but if we're bringing in new employees, do they fit what we've built? Because that can,
Mm.
not having that right culture fit could tear everything back down.
So true. It's funny. I feel like I've talked to a lot of different business owners about this and the acquisition, desire, but no one has specifically hit the culture piece and the employee piece. And so I'm so glad that you said that because it is a big factor in whether or not this is going to be successful or not.
It really is. And we've had, we have a couple open positions and we've interviewed for them. But, if somebody says, hey, how much am I going to make? Or what's my pay time off? Like right off the bat, you're like, okay, this person's already thinking about leaving. Like they're not going to fit. The resume looked good, but the culture piece wasn't there.
Yeah. So you have to look beyond the resume sometimes and just really, make sure there's a dynamic that's going to work. That relationship is going to be there. But from the acquisition mindset, you're certainly working with the right coach to do that right now. Steve loves that game.
Absolutely. And I think that's from building, something up from scratch versus
Yeah.
acquiring. Acquiring, I think that to grow again would be the better way to go.
Yeah, that's great. Just to wrap this up here, for those who are listening, we obviously have a lot of kind of like-minded listeners who are, wanting to grow, wanting to acquire, are trying to understand kind of how to approach that growth, but maybe, feel like they're tight on cash and they're afraid of making that investment. What would you say to them who, if they're kind of holding themselves back right now?
Take the leap, but do so with maybe is it criteria? That's it. We'll have
Yeah.
the right go through you. They'll have the right criteria in place. So you know what you're looking for. You know your profit margins. You know what you're exactly looking for in a business. Don't just go in and say, hey, I'm going to buy something. You buy something just to do it. Make sure you know, trust your gut. If you're tight on cash, there's creative ways to buy a business. So it doesn't have
Yeah.
to necessarily be cash. I mean, you can work with a partner, see if there's seller financing. So there's different ways. So if you are tight on cash, there's creative ways to do it.
And I'll say, kind of as to what you did at the very beginning, when buying the property, use your mentors, use the people who have your best interest in mind, people who are in your corner and who want to, really give you the best advice that they possibly can as you're taking that leap per se.
That's exactly what I said. They've been there before and they'll have the ideas for you.
Yeah. All right. Final question for you. Is there one thing that you wish that you did sooner in all of this time?
I've thought about this question. It's tough because I feel like everything happens when it's supposed to. If we would have
Yeah.
jumped in too fast, then we wouldn't have been ready. I think timing has its place if you calculate it the correct way.
Yeah, that's great. No regrets. You're happy with the path that you've taken and the approach that you've made to it.
Yes, because I think too soon, too fast could have resulted bad just because of the experience and learning and
That's great. Well, John, thank you so much for coming on and kind of telling us your story. Again, John Moskola, Watson and Sons Plumbing. You can check out their website. If I'm sure any of our clients in the Summit program, obviously, can connect with John and learn more from him as well. John, any final words before we sign off today?
No, thank you so much, Molly. Said if anyone else has questions, it's been a process, but I'm more than happy to share.
I appreciate it. The power of sharing goes a long way. We always say leverage the power of the group because there's no point in doing it all on your own. So John, thank you. And I always say until next time, because I'm sure that there will be more lessons learned and more stories to tell as you continue to grow this business and, make your acquisition plans kind of come to fruition. So hopefully we can reconnect on that in the future.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you.